Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcus White.
And my name is Fight Mode Nick Cavalli, and we would like to welcome you to round 2 of the World Wrestling Classic 2020.
Yes, so of course, this is the Wrevolution Pro Wrestling Podcast, and
seeing these beautiful faces.
Exactly. So yes, as my good friend Nick said, we are going ahead to get into the second round of the World Wrestling Classic. We looked at all your votes from the polls over this past week, and
something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And we also took into account our own input, and we have the results for the next rounds of the tournament going forward.
So the World Wrestling Classic second round is set, and we are going to present this one to you a little bit differently. It's not going to be run down top to bottom of the bracket. We are going to present this to you as though it is a wrestling show, and we are going to kick things off with the cleaner. Kenny Omega takes on TJP in this second round matchup. It is a little bit of a clash of styles, as Kenny Omega, one of the best technical all-around wrestlers in the world. TJP, of course, more of a high-flying style, but he does have that technical mat-based prowess as well, training under the Brian Kendrick. This would be a really fun matchup to watch.
Yes, now as you guys did vote on Twitter, 100% vote for Kenny Omega. Pretty much lines up with where me and Nick stood going into this one. As I said before, I felt like TJP, not to sleep on him. Again, he's a veteran in this industry. He's been doing this for a long time, since he was like 12 or 13. So the man's been in this business for a long time, but obviously I felt that the just in-ring prowess of Kenny Omega would just be a little bit too much to handle for TJP. And that's pretty much what it looked like we saw going into this match. TJP did surprise us, I'll tell you that. I mean, he looked like he surprised everybody in this matchup, actually.
Yeah, he performed absolutely perfectly in this matchup, but still not enough to keep up with Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega goes home with the win in this matchup, and he didn't even need to pull out the one-winged angel to do it. He hits the Tiger Driver for the win.
Yes, so
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No.
We're going to go ahead and move on now to the second match in the second round. Drew McIntyre, the WWE World Champion, takes on Jay Lethal from Ring of Honor. And, of course, gosh, how dare I totally forgot to mention, the cleaner, of course, the triple Mega champion and one half of the All Elite Wrestling World Tag Team Champions. I gotta remember my plugs. But, yes, Drew McIntyre, the World Champion from WWE, taking on one of Ring of Honor's all-time greatest talents, Jay Lethal. And this is a little bit of a different contest. Lethal is fighting up a weight class here, although he's no particularly small guy himself. So how do you think this one works out?
Well, as I said in our last video, I felt that Jay Lethal, it's definitely a clash of styles, him and McIntyre. I felt like if Lethal was going to have any chance in this match, he was going to have to fight smart. Obviously, you're not going to power Drew McIntyre, and you may not even match him in terms of speed, because McIntyre is deceptively fast for his size. And I mean, he's all like light muscle. I mean, he's a big boy, but it's all lean, you know? It's pure, it's not just like big muscles, me massive. No, it's like he is the prototypical example of what you want in today's athlete, Drew McIntyre, that is. So if you're Jay Lethal, you have to purely rely on outsmarting your opponent. McIntyre, of course, is not dummy by any stretch of the imagination, but Lethal that is the only edge, if there's any, in winning this match, is perhaps trying to outthink your opponent. Like I said before, if McIntyre had any weakness going into this match from his prior match up against Moose, he was going to have to use that, target any limbs. If there's anything you can use to your advantage, that's what Jay Lethal's going to have to do going into this match, if he has a prayer in winning this match at all.
Yeah, of course, Moose did work over the back a little bit of Drew McIntyre. We talked about in the last video. I believe we talked about in the last video. I could be wrong. So Jay Lethal did go after that, did target the back of Drew McIntyre, but it was not enough. Drew McIntyre was able to come away with a Claymore kick win. Lethal looked fantastic in this loss, though. He looked, I wouldn't say on the same level, but he looked like he belonged in the same ring as the WWE World Champion, which is a big thing to say for a Ring of Honor competitor.
Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like many of you guys felt like he belonged in the same ring going into the match, because 100% voting for Mr. McIntyre going into this one.
Yeah. So we move on now to a match that some people have been looking forward to. It's not so much a clash of styles, but as it is a clash of athletic stature. Scorpio Sky from AEW takes on the NXT North American Champion, the Limitless Keith Lee, in what should be a high-octane, high-paced, action-packed match. But two very, very different athletes in that ring.
Well, I feel like they're different only in the fact of their stature. I mean, I said this was very similar to the Lethal McIntyre match, in the fact that, again, Scorpio Sky, what separates him from a lot of guys is that he's faster, he's more athletic, and in this case, I feel like with Keith Lee, it's just simply not the case. Again, Keith Lee, like McIntyre, he's deceptively agile and fast for his size. He can fly with the best of them, and once he gets moving, he's like a freight train out of control. So I felt like if you're Scorpio Sky, I mean, your biggest advantage in this match is stick and move. Just keep moving. Don't get caught by the big man.
Absolutely, and it's difficult to do that when the big man Keith Lee is just about as fast and athletic as you are in Scorpio Sky. Keith Lee is a fantastic athlete. This is a dream match that not a lot of people would think of as a dream match, but now that it's sitting in front of you, you look at it, you go, wow, I would pay good money to see this.
Yes.
So this is the kind of match you'd love to see, and it was the kind of match we love to watch as Keith Lee comes away with another victory here. Now, Keith Lee got hurt in that Brock Lesnar match. Rollins targeted the ribs after he was hurt in the Lesnar match. The ribs still hurting here, but Keith Lee able to come away with another win here. Big Bang Catastrophe over Scorpio Sky.
Yeah, I said this. I said Keith Lee, if he was going to win this match, it was just simply the fact that he's used to facing smaller opponents. I feel like that's where Scorpio Sky had the biggest disadvantage, that he's not just facing a big guy that, like a Brock Lesnar or like a Big Show or someone like that who's just, you're always fighting down. Keith Lee has had amazing matches with guys that are like 3 times smaller than him. So I felt like Scorpio Sky, if there's any advantage, again, it was to stick and move and perhaps target a limb. But Keith Lee just shrugging off any perceived weakness that he had going into this match and pertaining to that injury. And yeah, while it was a fun, exciting match, it was pretty dominant, I'd say, throughout this entire matchup for Keith Lee. I mean, he sure was dominant in the polls. Again, 100% voting for Keith Lee here.
Alrighty, we move on now to the top right of the bracket. Tetsuya Naito taking on Hangman Adam Page. So that is the IWGP World Champion and IWGP Intercontinental Champion Tetsuya Naito, and one half of the AEW World Tag Team Champions, Hangman Adam Page. What a matchup this is. And it's not that Hangman Page is exactly the most in-ring prowess type competitor in the world, but this would be a hell of a match to watch, would it not?
Yes, I said if Naito obviously has the in-ring experience advantage over Hangman Page, who's a little bit of a younger competitor in just not getting started in the business, but just on comparison basis, Naito's been in this game just a little bit longer than Hangman. He's probably gonna outsmart him, wrestle him. I mean, in-ring technique-wise, you definitely give the edge to Naito. But Hangman, again, like I said, he's that light heavyweight going to use a combination of speed and strength, and he's the total package. I mean, this is what you look at a guy like Hangman and you just go, this guy's got it all. And it was a closer matchup, and pose wise. I mean, 67% to 33, so it wasn't a complete blowout, but a lot of you guys did feel that Hangman was going to get the victory going into this match, and that is exactly what happened.
Well, we got some cowboy shit from the beer-swelling man himself. Hangman Adam Page hits the buckshot lariat for a 1-2-3 on Tetsuya Naito. Again, a fantastic matchup. A lot of charisma is the big word to go with this one. There was a lot of showboating here from Hangman Page. That's the style that he has, but he was very hard-hitting, and he is able to come away with the victory. So we are 4 matches down, 4 to go in round 2, and we are going to give you your first look at what the next bracket will look like by giving you this matchup. Of course, this will complete, yes, one of your 4 brackets. That's what I meant in the really roundabout way I just said it. We get Pentagon Jr. taking on the Impact World Champion Tessa Blanchard. Blanchard was a number 2 seed. Junior upset number 3 Rush as a 6 seed. So this matchup was, I mean, Tessa Blanchard was on upset alert from the beginning, and I even said that perhaps it's Pentagon Jr. we should say is on upset alert, because nobody has any faith that Blanchard could win this match, really. I mean, she's a hard-hitting, fantastic competitor, one of the best wrestlers in the world, but to hang with Pentagon Jr., that's big.
Yeah, surprisingly, you guys were split on who was going to win this match, 50-50 voting in the polls. I said that I felt like this is where Tessa Blanchard's story ends. I like Tessa. I think she's fantastic in the ring, and obviously she's a world champion for a reason. But the experience of Pentagon Jr., again, a guy you're talking about, people may have forgotten, but he's considered one of the best wrestlers in the world when he's not in a tag team. So I just felt like this is where Tessa Blanchard just gets simply outmatched, outclassed. So I was a little surprised at the way this match wound up.
So we get, in our first match of the second half of the night here, the 5th match of the night, we get a 35-minute, 5-star classic from Pentagon Jr. and Tessa Blanchard. These two go the absolute extra mile trying to put one another away, and Tessa Blanchard comes away with a big victory here. She is the first person to make it into the quarterfinals that does not represent AEW or WWE. So we'll move along now to the next matchup, and it's going to be the American Nightmare Cody against Johnny Gargano. The battle of the black and gold brands, and who has the right to face Drew McIntyre in the next round. What do you think coming into this matchup?
Johnny wrestling all the way. You knew I'm a big Johnny Gargano fan. I'm a big Cody fan, obviously. And while you could say that Cody definitely had the edge going into this match because their styles are somewhat similar, but Cody obviously has the strength advantage. I said that in terms of just I'd give the slight advantage in athleticism to Johnny Gargano. And obviously, I would say even in-ring prowess, I would also give the edge to Gargano because he's just an absolute ring general. I mean, everything he does, he's always about outsmarting his opponent, just being able to absolutely dominate what he does in those 4 corners and that squared circle, as it's called in the wrestling business. I feel like no one does that better than Johnny Gargano. So I was Johnny all the way.
Yeah, and of course I'm a huge Cody Rhodes supporter. Cody, one of the best wrestlers in the world right now, one of the hottest acts in the world, and of course one of the smartest acts in the world. And I thought that would work into his advantage. Not that Johnny Gargano is dumb by any stretch of the imagination, but Johnny's always working on outsmarting his opponents. And I figure the intelligence of Cody in the ring would be where Johnny underestimates him. and Cody gets the victory, but that's not the case. Of course, I would just like to say, on any other night, this is match of the night, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Any other night, this is match of the night, but it had no chance of being match of the night tonight. Close second, sure, but no chance. Johnny Gargano takes home the win, a Gargano escape on Cody, who passes out. Johnny Gargano, of course, gets Cody to pass out. Cody's never going to give up. He's going to just go ahead and pass out there in the arms of Johnny Gargano, who will go on to take on Drew McIntyre in the semifinals. Excuse me, quarterfinals. Jeez, oh Pete, I can't talk. We'll move on to the second to the last match of the night, and it is going to be the Shield reunion. Jon Moxley.
Been looking forward to this one.
Yes, the all-elite wrestling world champion, Jon Moxley, takes on the big dog, Roman Reigns. Roman, of course, by all accounts, should be the Universal Champion right now if it wasn't for COVID-19. So this might as well be a champion versus champion match, not to take anything away from Braun Strowman. This is a fight. This isn't a match. This is a fight.
Yeah, there's not really much to talk about here that hasn't already been said. I mean, going into this matchup, you knew it was going to be personal. Both men feel like they're the face of not just their particular shows or their companies, but the face of the wrestling brand. You have someone like Roman Reigns, who since day one in WWE has been the anointed one. He's been the guy that WWE has just said, you are the next John Cena. You're going to be the guy that's, going to be the face of our company. And he's been everywhere. He's been all over ESPN. He's been all over any of the major media outlets. He's been on social media. He's in the YouTube videos, on the network, in the commercials. Like, that's Roman Reigns. And Jon Moxley, forever, he felt like when he was in the company, that should be me. Like, he felt like I'm a better wrestler than Roman Reigns. Felt like I'm personally more entertaining than Roman, so that should be me in that spot. And then when he ended up leaving and going to AEW, obviously he's the golden boy. He's the guy that gets pushed and made the face of the company. He's the guy that's in all the interviews and the advertisements, social media, you name it. So now he's saying, I'm finally where I'm supposed to be, me, my face everywhere, and I'm going to prove to everyone in this match that it should have been me from day one.
And this is the funny thing. So Roman Reigns, you say John Cena. I get kind of the Rock vibes from him. I mean, yeah, they're cousins. That's probably why. And he's not quite as just full on babyface like I'm a company guy.
Well,
like
I'm saying next John Cena because he's the next up. Like that's.
but hear me out. The reason I say that it reminds me of that is because who does Jon Moxley remind you of?
Stone Cold.
Stone Cold.
Yeah.
So this is Stone Cold versus The Rock 2.0. That's what you're getting here. You are getting Stone Cold in Jon Moxley now that he's not in WWE, now that he's not on their script. And you're getting Roman Reigns, who more and more is beginning to be loved and more is starting to act a little bit more like The Rock. I mean, he's not quite to the crazy catchphrases and stuff other than the "It's my yard" now,
believe that.
Believe that. But this is a matchup that I would love to see. I would pay anything to see Jon Moxley take on Roman Reigns. And of course, I know people are going to say, "Oh, you could see that in the WWE. It's happened already." No, it's
not the same. No.
Dean Ambrose versus Roman Reigns has happened. It's not the same by any means.
That's like seeing Jon Moxley versus Jericho. It's not the same as seeing Dean Ambrose versus WWE Chris Jericho. It's not the same.
Which was awful, by the way. I mean, I don't want to say awful. It was
the Ambrose Asylum match was horrible. Match.
Yes. Other than the tax spot, that was pretty cool. Yeah. So this is an absolute knockdown, drag-out fight. Jon Moxley is a fighter.
Yeah.
He's shown now that he has a little bit of MMA prowess. And he's just an absolute brawler. This guy's going to come at you from the opening bell.
Took a lot of punishment here too. I mean, my God, Superman punches out the wazoo and a couple spears to add on to that.
But Moxley's not going to go away.
No.
What was the thing that he said to Hager through the match? You're going to have to kill me. You're going to have to break it. You're going to have to kill me.
Well, Roman certainly tried. I mean,
yeah, Roman Reigns definitely tried as best he could, but a little difficult to kill a best friend or a former best friend. And of course, these guys do still have respect for one another on a personal level, maybe not a professional level, but on a personal level, these two do still have a deep respect for each other. Not as much so as John.
It looked like in this match too, like honestly, Moxley kind of caught Roman off guard. I mean, even though yes, these two are really good friends, have respect for each other, you're right in the sense that they definitely don't have the respect for each other professionally, especially I feel like Roman to Moxley. I mean, you kind of saw when Moxley started kicking out of those spears, he kind of looked like really? Like Moxley is kicking out of my like, I mean, if you're Roman, you're
I was fighting a couple months ago.
Yeah, like you think you're Roman, you're the top guy in WWE. I mean, I don't want to. He's kind of got this elitist mindset, honestly. Like, no offense to Moxley or AEW, but like I'm Roman Reigns, I'm the face of WWE. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna squash this guy. Like, that's probably the mindset he has going into this match. And I felt like you kind of saw a little bit of that. Like he was taken aback. Like, whoa, like this is a fight. Like I'm gonna have to work my ass off to win this match.
Like, yo, this Moxley guy just kicked out of this.
Yeah. Ain't this the same move I pinned The Undertaker with?
Yeah, I ran it back and forth 4 times. This is supposed to work. These two put on an absolute slobber knocker, and in the end, spears and Superman punches and a couple of smaller paradigm shifts. We finally get that big elevated paradigm shift. Moxley looks down to Roman and he says, "I love you, brother," and hits him with the paradigm shift for the 1, 2, 3. Jon Moxley will advance to take on Keith Lee. So those two with the utmost respect for one another by the end of the match, and it was earned through a really grueling 35 to 40 minute battle. But we're not done yet. We still have probably one of the best matches you will ever see in your life. The phenomenal AJ Styles versus the former IWGP World Champion Kazuchika Okada. It is Phenomenal One versus Rainmaker. Wow. What are your thoughts coming into this match?
My thought is I'm not even going to take notes. I'm just going to kick back, relax, and enjoy the fun for however long this match goes. Because when you talk about the top 3, the elite, the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling, have you, when it comes to who's the best in the world right now. Not talking about greatness or anything or how many championships or whatever. I'm just talking about pure professional wrestling ability. Who is the best in the world right now? Your top 3, put them in any order you want, is Kenny Omega, AJ Styles, Kazuchika Okada. Like, put it whatever order you want. I don't care who's 1, 2, or 3, but that is your top 3. And if it's not your top 3, you're wrong. Like, you're wrong. So, yeah, I could not wait for this match. This is something that I've been looking forward to forever, especially. You look at someone like AJ Styles who, since he's been in WWE, maybe has lost a little bit of that pristine, that rub, that shine. He's not it's something about being on the indie scene and never being in WWE, having that mark of indie guy that never made it to WWE, that just in fans' heads just makes you an elevation above in people's minds. Is it right? No, but it's something about just that, he's the best to never perform on the biggest stage of them all, that people had it in their heads, yeah, AJ, that's the guy. And when he went to WWE and you see him fighting at WrestleMania, is it huge? Yes, it's amazing, something that you never thought you'd see. But I feel like, he lost a little bit of that. So maybe in people's minds, when you do talk about that top three, you start to slide AJ down a little bit. Maybe you're thinking more of, especially because after AJ went to WWE, you had those matches between Kenny Omega and Okada that people are talking about the best matches ever. You're seeing Dave Meltzer, losing his mind, jerking off and throwing out 6.5-star matches. So I mean, that's.
To be fair, you watched one of them with me, and by God, that match.
I did. No, it was fantastic. I've gone back since and watched all three. They are all fantastic matches, but you get what I'm saying. Like, I mean, you when you're talking about the top three, but a lot of people, are more maybe inclined to go, hey, it's Kenny Okada, and then, AJ makes it in there at 3. Maybe when you look at people like the Johnny Garganos and the Finn Balor's, maybe people go, maybe it's a little bit more on par. Maybe you can slide one of them. Maybe AJ falls to 5. Like, this is the mindset that people have had, and I feel like it's very disrespectful to what you go down in history as one of the best wrestlers of all time. So I feel like this was a prove-it match for AJ. Going into this, it was a must-win, in my opinion, for AJ Styles, because you lose to Okada. First of all, in your own mind, it cements you under Okada, so that way, no matter which way you go about it, AJ's number 3. If he loses this match, he is number 3, because at that point, Okada and Kenny, they can fight all day they want for who's 1 and 2. So it's a must-win in that regard, but then it's a must-win the fact that it's a prove-it match. Whether you actually think it is or not, in a lot of people's heads, it's, okay, is AJ really as good as we've been hyping him up to be? So that was where I was thinking going into this matchup.
I would agree with you almost entirely on that. Now, the one thing that I keep putting in the back of my head when I come into this matchup is, either way this goes, the Kenny Omega match is already set. So Kenny Omega will be facing either AJ Styles or Kazuchika Okada. So we'll either get the dream match we never got to see, or the rematch we might never get to see. It's a toss-up. It really is. I mean, and that's no disrespect to AJ Styles, because it shouldn't be a toss-up. It should be, I want to see the dream match. But Kenny and Okada put on these matches that there just are not words for. There aren't. When you do a best 2 out of 3 falls match, and that was by far my favorite of the matches, oh my, these guys tell novels in an hour.
Yes.
But AJ Styles is, and to put him against Kenny Omega in the ring would be one of the most entertaining matches I've seen in my entire life. And so, go ahead.
And just something that it just kind of popped in my head too. You got to think about this too. This is like where AJ is right now. It's kind of what you look at Shawn Michaels when he was at the end of his career. I mean, let's think about this. AJ Styles is the oldest of the 3 people when we talk about the best in the world. He's in his mid-40s. He's got a lot more years behind him than he does in front of him. And yeah, you look at, the comparison to Shawn Michaels has always been there, but especially now more than ever, you're in kind of, not the twilight, but you're definitely reaching the end of your career, and you're putting on still some of the best matches you've had in your life. So I feel like that gets really undervalued. People don't talk about that enough. AJ should not be at the level that he is at the age that he's at right now.
No, he should not. And of course, the last thing that I do want to mention before I tell you what happened, this is New Japan's last chance to get into the the quarterfinal round. New Japan Pro Wrestling just a year and a half ago was considered the second best wrestling promotion in the world. Right now, it has a chance of being eliminated by the quarterfinal round. A lot of that has to do with, the creation of All Elite Wrestling and the fact that a lot of their guys went there. And additionally, maybe some seeding, and we'll talk about that later. AJ Styles picks up the win here over Kazuchika Okada, and he hits a Styles Clash to do it, but it takes so many false finishes from both of these men Rainmaker 2, and Styles on his second or third Styles Clash by the time this match is over. It is a full-on 45-minute, 6 3/4 star classic, 5-star classic, if you will. These guys put on one of the best shows you'll see in your entire life, and it prepares us for an absolute war. It is the anointed leader of the Bullet Club, AJ Styles, and the man who was anointed leader only because AJ left.
What I loved most about this match was that there was one point you saw a little bit of disrespect from Okada. He threw up the too sweet and even hit AJ with a V trigger. So that was, you definitely saw, it got a little personal in there.
Absolutely. And it did look like at one point AJ Styles was going for a one-winged angel. Of course, AJ and Kenny, very good friends. Kenny Omega's finished some matches with the Styles Clash before. AJ going for the one-winged angel. Kazuchika Okada, all too familiar with that position, noped out of there very quickly. Fantastic matchup between these guys. And, props to AJ Styles for coming away with another huge victory here, moving on in the World Wrestling Classic.
Yes. So, with that being said, all the matches are done. We've told you the winners and who is advancing. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket for next week's matchups. So, now we've got the bracket. It is all finished and set. So, let's start at the top right side of the bracket. Of course, it's going to be one half of the AEW World Tag Team Champions, Hangman Adam Page, versus the TNA World Champion, Tessa Blanchard. What are your thoughts on that match?
Excuse you. Impact World
Impact.
Champion.
Well, I am so sorry.
Wow, you're stuck in the mid-2000s much.
Yeah.
My thoughts on the match are, Tessa, I love you. I think you're a fantastic wrestler. I don't know how you get past Hangman. Like, I thought it'd be tough for you to beat Penta. I don't know how you get past Hangman Page.
Yeah,
He's come so far in the last year and a half. I don't see it happening.
That's also a pure, strength deficit, too. I mean, my God, can you imagine Hangman hitting one of those, buckshot lariats on the Tessa Blanchard? He could take her head off.
Well, this is the funny thing. Tessa Blanchard is pound for pound one of the strongest competitors in wrestling. She is very strong, very powerful. But when it comes down to it, Hangman Page is a light heavyweight. He's borderline heavyweight wrestler. This dude moves around the ring like he is a lightweight wrestler.
And and here's the thing, he's a cowboy. He got that southern gentlemanly charm, but I feel like after a couple beers he'll have no bones about hitting the ladies.
Just go to the private party, get another bottle of their Jack Daniels, take a couple sips, and I think we'll be all right.
A little gin and juice there.
First time Tessa Blanchard beats the living hell out of him, he goes, oh, well, maybe it's time for me to step up because she could genuinely kick my ass.
Yes. All jokes aside, no, this is going to be a competitive match. And I said last round that that's where her story ends, and I was clearly wrong. So I don't know anymore. Tessa could probably pick up the win here. I don't know. Of course, I'm going with Hangman Page. I'm sticking to my guns. The story ends here.
I'm going to go with Hangman Page as well. However, I do have to note, Tessa Blanchard is the last indie wrestler left. The last non-Big Two. She's the only person left out of Impact, ROH, and New Japan, and our at-large bids as well.
Yes, so Tessa Blanchard, the last hope of the indie scene. So if you're not a fan of either AEW and WWE, you better throw some votes her way.
So we'll go down to the bottom right now, and that is going to be the limitless Keith Lee, the NXT North American Champion, taking on the All Elite Wrestling World Champion, Jon Moxley.
So I'm a little split on this matchup. Here's the reason why.
I figured you would be.
Keith Lee is fantastic. He is amazing at what he does. He's one of the best new gen wrestlers, I feel like. But, God, he's taking so much punishment. And don't get me wrong, Moxley took a lot of punishment in that Roman Reigns match too. But Moxley, I feel like it's just another level, man. This guy is a world champion for a reason. Multiple world championships over in WWE. World champion, obviously, of AEW currently. I just feel like at some point, and then Keith Lee has gotten victories over world champions. I mean, he beat Roman Reigns actually this previous year in that whole Survivor Series thing.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not like he has...
He just about knocked Brock Lesnar out of the Royal Rumble.
Yeah. And again, he had to go through some world champions earlier he had to fight Brock Lesnar to get in.
Beat Brock Lesnar to get in.
And then he faced off against Rollins. So, I mean, I'm not discrediting Keith Lee's ability, but you had to go through 2 world champions in this tournament alone, and now you're facing a third. I just feel like at some point it's too much.
Yeah, I think you're right here. And I look at it this way. Jon Moxley, Keith Lee has 1 or 2 styles. The big guy and the athletic style. Jon Moxley can beat you with anything. He can brawl you to death. He can make you tap out. He can body you up if you're smaller. He's not going to body up Keith Lee, but he could. He can go athletic. He can go top rope. He can do anything. This guy can beat you from anywhere. He could be on the mat, on the top rope. He could be in a suplex position. He could be cornered and brawling his way out of it. This man can beat you from anywhere. That's one of the most terrifying things you can ever find in a fighter.
So when we look at the bracket here, let's look at some potential matchups. So one of the scarier ones is that you could potentially see Keith Lee versus Tessa Blanchard, which, mamma mia there. But you could also get...
That would be an absolute power slugfest.
Another one is you could, of course, see, if our projections are right and we think Hangman's going forward, then you could see Hangman versus Keith. You could see Hangman versus Moxley. That's an AEW slugfest in its own right. I mean, so
that is
I don't know what
dream match.
I guess my question to you is, what would be your preferred matchup? Who would you prefer to go to advance in terms of wrestling match-wise?
Match-wise, probably Moxley and Hangman. I think that matchup would be a slugfest. Neither of those guys are willing to give up. Hangman Page has hardly been beaten, and we were at that match in Chicago. He did not go down against Jericho to anything short of literally being elbowed in the jaw. So I think Hangman Moxley would be an absolute slugfest.
So as much as the psychopath in me would love to see Keith Lee versus Tessa Blanchard, I think I actually would like to see Keith Lee versus Hangman. These are 2 larger competitors that are known to, to move around and to get busy flying around the ring. So I'd love to see, I love the big man matches. I'd love to see these 2 guys go in there and just have a good fight. So that's where I'm at with that one.
Absolutely. Well, tune in next week to find out. So we'll go over to the other side of the bracket. We'll start on the bottom left there. Save the best for last. Drew McIntyre, Johnny Gargano, an all WWE match up in the bottom left. And big man, little man, both of these guys have wrestling prowess, though.
Yes. So when I look at this matchup, obviously a huge Johnny Gargano fan and a fairly large Drew McIntyre fan as well. I look at this, and the obvious choice that rings out to me, believe it or not, is Drew McIntyre. Because while I think Gargano is amazing, I think he's getting up there in terms of when you talk about the best wrestler in the world. I mean, you got to throw him somewhere. I feel like in that top 10, you have to. That's just my personal opinion. But Drew McIntyre's just, again, when you talk about the prototypical, like, the cutout of what today's athlete looks like, what you want in a professional wrestler, it's Drew McIntyre. He's got everything. He's all lean muscle. He's damn near 7 foot tall. Like, he's everything you want in a pro wrestler. He can talk with the best of them. He could be the face. He's everything. So I look at Drew McIntyre and I just go, look, Johnny, you're amazing, but it's too much. How can you not pick Drew McIntyre in this match?
Yeah, this may be the easiest matchup to pick, and I hate to say that because I love Johnny Gargano, and it's still going to be a good match, but I don't see how Johnny Wrestling gets past Drew McIntyre in this round. I just don't see it.
Yeah, he's gonna have to
tons of insight.
he's gonna have to work some magic. I'll tell you that. I mean, especially after coming off that match against Cody, he's gonna be hurting. And don't get me wrong, McIntyre is not exactly in the greatest shape either. I mean, he just got done dealing with Jay Lethal, who made it a point to remind him of every injury he's.
Realign the spine.
Yeah, remind him of every injury he's ever had in his career. But nevertheless, I think McIntyre's in a better spot than Gargano is right now. And then let's go ahead and move up to that top left. Obviously, what's going to be the best match in the quarterfinals, bar none. A dream match, the match that we've been hoping and praying we'd get to see. And now we're giving it to you only on the Wrevolution Pro Wrestling Podcast. And that is
Kenny Omega.
The best bout machine, the Terminator, call him whichever nickname you want, Kenny Omega versus the phenomenal one, AJ Styles.
It's finally happened. This is the match that I've talked about in my dream match category. It is number one, AJ versus Kenny, and I don't even know what to say. Like, this is going to be a kickback, relax, and enjoy classic. This is going to be the kind of match that you don't want to take notes on, and I would not be surprised if this match goes in excess of an hour.
So, I feel like when you're talking about this match, definitely Kenny has had the easier bracket, the easier. I mean,
yes.
he's fought I'm not just discounting these guys by any means, but Takahashi, TJP, in comparison, obviously, to Chris Jericho and one of the top 3 wrestlers in the world, Okada. I mean, AJ is going to be beat up coming into this, and I love AJ Styles. I think he's one of the best in the world, obviously. And if this was under any other circumstances, I would probably pick AJ Styles. But after having to face Okada prior to this matchup, I mean, you're talking about having to knock off 2 of the top 3 wrestlers in the world back to back. I just don't see it happening. I think Kenny Omega, just simply the fact that he's just going to be the fresher of the 2. AJ's going to have to work some magic to win this match, so I'm going to have to go with Kenny Omega here.
My heart says Kenny, but my brain is telling me AJ. I think AJ Styles is going to win this matchup. And it's not something wrong with Kenny as much as it is. AJ's on this redemption tour. You know, AJ Styles, I made Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada. I made that rivalry. Me leaving New Japan, I made that. I made you who you are. And now it's time to put you down and show you that I made you who you are because I'm better than you. I think AJ Styles comes away with a huge victory here. I think it's going to be one of the most tightly contested matchups of all time.
He's going to need every bit of that Georgia Bulldog mentality if he's going to win this match. Absolutely.
The one thing that scares me, and I hope to God whoever's booking this does not pull it, I do not want to see AJ Styles kick out of the One-Winged Angel.
Oh, God, no. No, I don't. That's... Ixnay on that. Like, no, that needs to never happen. If it was going to be anybody, I mean, in my personal opinion, while you could always go the mindset of, yeah, it should probably, if it ever gets kicked out of, maybe you maybe want to give it to a younger guy. We talked about maybe being Hangman. We've had that idea. You brought that up actually, which surprised me. But if it was me, if it was up, and I mean, when you talk about anyone that has the potential to kick out of it, I would think it would be someone like Okada or an AJ, someone who is widely regarded as one of the top 3 wrestlers in the world, one of the best wrestlers to ever walk the face of the planet. So if it's going to, it's just like when you talk about who should have ended the Undertaker's streak. Do I think it should have been Brock Lesnar? No, I think if it was going to be anybody, I thought maybe it should have been someone like a Shawn Michaels, someone that you talk about. Yeah, that's one of the best wrestlers in the world, one of the best wrestlers ever, one of the, which I don't like saying GOATs because I feel like there's only, when you talk about greatest of all time, there's only one. I don't think that there should be GOATs. I've always thought that. But to use more relevant lingo, one of the GOATs of the wrestling industry, you could say Shawn Michaels. I feel like that should be someone that should have ended Taker's streak, and I feel the exact same way about something like kicking out of the One-Winged Angel. It should be someone who when you talk about someone like AJ Styles or Okada, it's one of the GOATs of the industry. So while I don't...
And that's...
Go ahead.
That's understandable. I'm on the other end of the spectrum, and I think you know that I think it should be a younger guy. I think Bray Wyatt should have ended the Undertaker's streak, and I think it will wind up being somebody like a Hangman Page or maybe a Darby Allin, someone who doesn't understand pain, who kicks out of the One-Winged Angel first.
Regardless, it's going to be...
I mean, IRL, it's probably going to be Kota Ibushi, but, whatever.
Regardless, it's going to be a fantastic match, the best match of the tournament. That's my biggest worry, though, is that because it's almost like blowing your load a little too early, like it's definitely
mature.
Yeah, I mean, how I don't know what can follow this, if I'm being honest. But I mean, if we look at the potential matches coming out of that, I mean, you do have potential here, so you could still get after this. You could still get an Omega or a Styles versus Johnny Gargano, which, I mean, me personally, again, I said Gargano is one of the top 10 wrestlers in the world. And my goodness, if AJ Styles knocks off Omega and then has to fight Johnny Gargano and he beats him, you are undisputably the best wrestler, period. Doesn't matter. It's AJ Styles. And then even again, if it's Omega and he knocks off AJ and then he beats Johnny Gargano, again, you just beat one of the top 3 wrestlers in the world, and then you're beating a top 10. Like, that's pretty good. Like, so I mean, I feel like whoever wins the AJ Omega match has to be a favorite going forward, right? But I say that...
I think whoever wins that match is the favorite to win the whole tournament. I
say that, but then I also look at the other side, and I look at, Drew McIntyre. Again, that's who we both assume is going over in this matchup. I mean, or at least what I assume is going over in this matchup. If Drew McIntyre wins, he's a freak of nature. And Omega and Styles are going to be beat the hell up after just fighting, AJ especially, after having to fight both Okada and Omega back-to-back. So, while immediately you obviously would jump to the conclusion and say, yeah, one of those two guys are going to be the favorite, I think it just makes the path easier for McIntyre if he's able to knock off Gargano. I think McIntyre's path is clear. He's going to the finals, if that happens.
I don't know. I'm going to be honest. My guess is we're going to get a guy from the top left and the bottom right. That would be my guess.
All right.
I'm no expert. I only booked the damn thing, but it's not booked weeks in advance. This is something that's current. It's always fluid. In our first attempt at doing this, we had AJ and Kenny meeting in the finals. So clearly, this is a fluid thing. Things change. Our seating changed, and as wrestling progresses and we see things through the COVID-19 pandemic, things change.
So and even again, taking in your guys' opinions too, that also helps to changes things too. I mean, seeing your guys' opinions, it's almost surprising, some of your answers too, to go, oh wow, this guy's an all-out favorite, or wow, that's a little bit closer than I thought it was gonna be. So I mean, I was really shocked to see D-Bry out as fast as he was. So, from your guys', like from voting wise, like seeing you guys go, yeah, no, D-Bry has no chance in this match. Like it was kind of like, wow, shocking to me. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many factors that go into booking something like this, and that's why it's such an interesting idea and concept of, because if something like this were to happen IRL, and just think, wow, like the possibilities are endless. It's almost a shame that something like this does not exist purely based on pettiness, obviously, and greed. Yep. That's honestly the only thing stopping something like this from taking place in real life.
And I could see this taking place when Vince is stepped down. When Paul Levesque is in power, I could see this kind of thing take place. Would it involve AEW guys? Probably not. But I could see him putting on a tournament with Ring of Honor and New Japan and the indie scene and Evolve and all those guys.
I could almost see that happening now with Vince, to be honest. I mean, his relationship with New Japan is pretty good, and I don't think he cares enough about Ring of Honor to be like, nah, we're not going to include them. I think it's just purely AEW that'd be ousted, if I'm being real with you.
Yeah, but I could see Paul Levesque down the line, especially because, you know, the relationship that was frayed for Cody Rhodes was more or less that with Vince McMahon, not so much with Triple H. So I could see the two of them sitting down and going, look, we could book this thing out. We could build a tournament that happens every year that brings the 32 best wrestlers in the world together and has them fight. But it's something we'll never see in Vince McMahon's reign as chairman of the board, which, you know, slowly but surely will come to an end eventually, maybe, possibly. I feel like he's probably immortal. He just lives on hate.
Yes. So that was the second round of the World Wrestling Classic. As always, we are going to post new polls on our Twitter so you guys can go ahead and voice your opinions about who you think is going to advance to the next round. We'll have the updated bracket posted as well. So when this video goes live, make sure you tune in to our social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, and you get prepared for that. Obviously, after this, we are going to have the Wednesday Night Wars video coming out for you. And then following that, next week, obviously, we'll be right back at you with the weekend wrap-up. So, unless you've got anything else.
Yeah, I have something else. Obviously, the Wrevolution Pro Wrestling Podcast is currently only available on YouTube during the coronavirus pandemic. When this is all said and done, and our previous episodes are currently available on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, and wherever else you find your fine pro wrestling podcasts. And of course, we will be back to those as soon as we are able to see each other's beautiful faces in person once again, and I can sit down with my title around my shoulder again. In the meantime, check us out on the YouTube. Thank you for your continued support. Like, share, subscribe, hit the ding, follow our social medias down in the links below, and of course, do not forget to join the Wrevolution.
So,
but in all seriousness, I'm not going to end it that quickly. Thank you guys for tuning in week and week out. I know that once in a while we like to do this, but I just wanted to thank you guys for continuing to tune in during the coronavirus pandemic, to continue to allow us to entertain you guys, both with updates of the really awful wrestling shows that we've been seeing, and our own new and fresh content, giving you some of the best fantasy booking we possibly can in this time. So thank you guys for continuing to stay tuned in. From the bottom of our hearts, we're very happy that you've continued to support us through all this.
Yes, so with that being said, live from Studio 6, I've been Marcus White.
Live from the spare bedroom, I am the Wrevolution Pro Wrestling Podcast World Heavyweight Champion, Fight Mode Nick Cavalli.
Had to struggle a little bit to get that out, huh? It's almost like it's
unnatural.
It's almost like it's unnatural to say.
Revolution Pro Wrestling. I was going to say Revolution Pro Wrestling, but that's a company, so I prefer not to get sued.
And yes, of course.
Shout out to Rev Pro.
And yes, this, of course, has been the Revolution Pro Wrestling Podcast. As always, join the revolution.
The revolution. Have a good night, guys.
Have one fantastic